Today we're going to talk about exponents that are fractions, so fractional exponents. And so up in the corner, up here, we're going to write a little definition. We're going to write x equals, oops, sorry, I already messed up, x to the m over n power. M is going to represent the power, and n is going to represent the root. Okay, so when you have a fraction, when you have a base, a number being raised to an exponent, that's a fraction. The top number is the power, the bottom number is the root. Okay, so let me explain what that means. So when you have 16 to the 1/2 power, okay, that means that it's the square root of 16 to the first power. Okay, I think it's going to be easier if we kind of write it this way, because when we get into cube roots and stuff, it's going to make a little bit more sense. So this is the root, the square root, and we're taking the first power of the square root of 16. So what's the square root of 16? 4, and then 4 to the first power is just 1. Okay, again, I know it's kind of like a weird process, but once we get into a little bit more, it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, so let's look at letter B. This has a negative exponent, so therefore, to make it positive, right, we know that we're going to put it in the denominator of our fraction. So it's 1 over 25 to the 1/2. So let's think about what that means. It means the square root of 25 and the first power of that, right? Because it's the square root of 25 to the first power. So that's 1 over, what's the square root of 25? 5. And it's raised to the first power, so we're done. Okay, so let's look, try to make sure y'all can see that. There we go. Okay. So let's talk about this one. Okay, this is again why I kind of wrote it like that. So it's the square root of 9, but now it's not the first power, right? On these two, 1 was the numerator of our fractional exponent. Now 5 is. So it's the square root of 9 raised to the 5th power. We know the square root of 9 is 3. So it's 3 to the 5th power, which is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which is 243. Okay, letter D. So it's a negative, so that means to make it positive, we put it in the denominator of our fraction. So now it's 1 over 4 to the 3 over 2. And so that's 1 over the square root of 4. Because remember, this tells you which root it is. It's the square root, and it's the third power of that. So 1 over, what's the square root of 4? 2 to the third, and we know 2 to the third, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So let's talk about cube roots. Okay, a cube root, we've only dealt with square roots, which are like 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, cube roots are, for example, the cubed root of 8 is 2, because 2 cubed is 8. Okay, the cubed root of 27 is 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So let's look at these. So we're going to write it the same way we wrote the others. I'm going to switch colors here. Okay, so this is the cubed root of 27 to the first power. The cubed root of 27 is 3. Okay, and if it's helpful for you, let's make a quick little reference here. 1 cubed is 1. 2 cubed, 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. 3 cubed, 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 is 27. 4 cubed. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. 5 cubed is 125. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125. So let's just keep this out, okay, and we'll see if it kind of comes in handy here. So let's look at this next one. Okay, on this next question, it's the cubed root of 64, right? Because that bottom 3 is telling us what root it is. It's the cubed root of 64 being raised to the 4th power. So let's look on here. The cubed root of 64 is 4. So 4 to the 4th power, we know 4 to the 3rd power is 64. So then times 4 is 256. Okay, letter G. So we're throwing it all together now. We've got negative exponents and everything, so or cubed roots. So this is going to be 1 over 8 to the 1/3 power. 1 over 8 to the 1/3. So that's 1 over the cubed root of 8 to the 1st power. So what's the cubed root of 8? 2. And it's just 1 over 2 because it's only being raised to the 1st power. So why don't you try letter H on your own, and then we'll kind of come back and check. Okay, so it's a negative exponent, so to make it positive, I put it in the denominator, so 1 over 125 to the 2/3 power. So that's 1 over the cubed root of 125 squared, right? It's the cubed root, and we're squaring it. So what's the cubed root of 125? 5. 1 over the cubic root of 125 is 5, and we're squaring that, so that's 1 over 25. Okay, so now we're going to use some of our properties that we've been talking about for the last few days, and we're going to combine and then with fractional exponents. So let's look at letter I. I have 12 to the negative 1/2 times 12 to the 5 over 2, okay, or 5/2 power. So I know that if I'm multiplying numbers together that have the same base, I'm going to add the exponents. So what's negative 1/2 plus 5/2? They have the same denominator. I add the numerators, negative 1 plus 5. This becomes 12 to the 4 over 2. Okay, so I could take the square root of 12. I would have to use the calculator. And then I could take that to the 4th power. But what do I know about 4 over 2? What's a better way of saying 4 over 2? Just 2. And 12 squared is 144. And then letter J, we have 6 to the 4/3 times 6 divided by 6 to the 1/3 power. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you could do this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say this is just regular. Let me see if I can see that. Okay, so this 6 is like saying 6 to the 3 over 3, right? Because what's 3 divided by 3? That is a janky looking 3. That's another way of writing 1, right? If these were fractions and I'm asking you to add them, which they are, they need to have a common denominator. So this exponent currently is 1. To write 1 as a fraction, I'm going to make it 3 over 3. So what that gives me is 6 and 7 over 3 over 6 and 1 over 3. Do you guys see that? What I did, I added these together, or sorry, I multiplied them, which means adding their exponents. 4/3 plus 3/3 is 7/3. Now, when you're dividing, you subtract the exponents. 7 over 3 minus 1 over 3 is 6 over 3. So it's a lot of work to get one little number, right? And then 6 over 3 is the same thing as 2, and 6 squared is 36. Okay, and in case you were going to ask, which you may have, okay, I would have gone ahead and multiplied up here, okay, first, but you could also have reduced, right? 4/3 minus 1/3, and I would have had 6 3/3, which is just 6. And then you would have had 6 times 6 is 36. Exact same answer.